Dr. Bloomer, chili peppers are known for their ability to produce heat. We know when we eat them, we get hot. But
Sure.
what do they have to do with diet and health and weight control?
Chili peppers have within them ingredients known as capsaicinoids.
Capsaicinoids.
Capsaicinoids. These capsaicinoids,
Is that the fruit of the chili pepper plant?
well, components, the active pungent component
Okay.
within,
The hot stuff.
the hot stuff within
Okay.
these chili peppers. These capsaicinoids, or sometimes individuals refer to this as capsaicin, which is one component of the capsaicinoid.
Okay.
But these capsaicinoids actually are responsible for providing that heat that you feel upon consumption.
Okay.
These capsaicinoids, we know, can be encapsulated, and they're sold oftentimes as a dietary supplement. They have many different properties in terms of the scientific
Okay.
literature when you look at this. But the one that's been discussed